SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the final lecture of this course, Philosophy of Architecture. Today we shall have the lecture number 20. The title of today's lecture is Homogeneous Space-Time. In this lecture we would cover isotopy and heterotopy, urban space-time, incision and suture of juxtaposed places, transcendence of closed and open, near and far, and veiled nature of urban society. In this lecture, essentially we will see the entire stretch of philosophy of cities in a very condensed manner. We shall see some theories that determine and that conceptualize what we see around us. Let us move forward. So, as we know that the urban space time, you can see that we are going to discuss urban space time which is homogeneous. So, homogeneous in a certain way in urban, homogeneous in a certain way in agrarian, and in a certain way in industrial. So, initially we had agriculture or agrarian space time, then we had industrial space time, and both of them and many other factors have led to form urban space time. Now, what is this space time and what is agrarian, industrial and different types of space time? Let us try and understand what is space time. In a very simple language, we can say that space time is nothing but life itself, because our life unfolds in space and life also unfolds in time. When we say time, it unfolds in time means our life has the components of past, present and future. So, across this past, present and future our life unfolds. And how does it unfold in space? Our life unfolds once we take birth. So, we are in a house which is of our parents, and that is where we grow up, we play and we study and we grow on to become an adult, and then we go ahead and study outside and we start doing jobs, and then we make our own family, and then this way the whole life goes. So, these spaces change over a period of time, and these spaces and this time, past, present and future, combine where our lives unfold. It happens individually, it happens collectively. So, when it happens collectively in a group, then we can call it an agrarian or industrial or urban, and when it is individual, it is simple space time. So, we will see that how historically space time has evolved in Indian society, and according to space time the cities have got formed, and these cities had different characteristics, different ways of existing, and the people who lived in these cities had their own requirements, own problems and challenges. Architecture has responded to these different space times. If you remember, the title of this lecture is Homogeneous Space Time. So, homogeneity has existed in each one of these space time in a different way. So, the homogeneity in agrarian space time is different from that in industrial space time. Let us try and understand what kind of homogeneity existed in agrarian space time. So, agrarian space time or context of agriculture follows the logic of farming or agriculture. And what is the logic of farming? It is the logic of nature, and logic of nature is birth, growth and death. In the case of plants also it is something similar. So, you have seeds, you sow seeds, and seeds blossom or they bloom into a plant, and they bloom into flowers and fruits, and then they grow and become trees. If they are to be harvested, then as they mature, they are harvested and then they are taken to the market for selling. So, this logic of agriculture is followed in agrarian space time, and the homogeneity is in the sense of this logic, that this logic is applied not just to plants and trees, but this logic is applied to everything that forms the context of agriculture, whether it is human beings, whether it is animals, whether it is the relationships, whether it is the factors of production, everything follows this, or at least moves towards this logic, or is governed by this logic. And this logic of birth, growth and death, this logic of sowing the seeds and seeing it grow and converting into plant and tree and so on. So, homogeneity is in the sense of this logic, homogeneity is in the sense of time, that it is slow moving and so on. Then when we move to industrial space time, and we have discussed this earlier, but for the sake of understanding I am explaining it once again, that industrial space time is that which follows the logic of industry, of technology, of productivity, of work and so on. It also follows the logic of technology, which is, we have said earlier, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. It follows the logic of input, output, input, process and output. It follows the logic of manufacturing, that you have a raw material which is processed to to create finished goods and so on. So, industrial space time has that logic, logic of machines, logic of technology. And then as you know that industry was superimposed on mercantile city, industry was superimposed on agriculture based society. So, all of this come together and they have created what we today call urban space time. Now, this urban space time we have understood over previous lectures that it is actually hidden by a blind field, and it is blinding us, and we are blinded by this urban space time, because we are not sure what it means, we are not sure what are its qualities, we are not sure that how it is going to develop in future. So, and it is still new, it is not something that has solidified into the idea of a city, it is still new and it is still moving in terms of formation, definition, identity and so on. So, what we will see today is see some or try and get some glimpses into what is the nature of this urban space time, so that we can get a sense as to in which direction urban society is moving, and therefore, if that is the direction, what kind of architecture the new urban society or the urban society would require, and what modifications and what new learnings architects and architecture needs to incorporate within itself, so that they are able to respond to the problems and challenges of urban space time. So, you can see this slide. As per this slide, urban space time is unitary. So, it does not have too much of diversity, and it does not have too much of even if it has diversity, it is superficial, at the bottom it is similar. So, it is unitary, it is monolithic, it is more or less similar wherever we go. So, it is unitary in that sense. Then it is global. So, urban space time has a geographical reach of the entire globe. So, whether you go to New York or you go to Shanghai, you go to Tokyo or you come to Delhi or Bombay, the character of urban space time is more or less similar. In one of the lectures you would remember that the experience on the ground of both capitalism and socialism has been more or less the same. So, it perhaps indicates towards that that urban space time has a global character, and therefore, wherever we study we are likely to get similar results. Second is, or next is, wholes of groups formed around a center. So, urban space time as per this contains wholes of groups formed around the center. So, there are groups, there are multiple groups, and groups also form a whole, and that whole is formed around the center. So, we can understand it in terms of, say, different cults, different brand followings, different companies, different say not so much religion, but cults, then different interest groups like, say, interests in pollution control, or interests in, say, animal welfare and things like that. So, there are large number of groups, and those groups are formed around a center. So, each group has its own center, all right, and this urban space time is comprising of a large number of such groups and a large number of centers, which means groups around those centers. So, urban space time, I repeat, has a character of being unitary, it is global across geographies, and it comprises of a large number of groups with their own centers. So, there are diverse centralities across which this urban space time is constructed. It also has these dualistic properties. Dualistic properties means distinguish without separating. Now, urban space time, if you notice, what it does is it makes things different. I mean, it shows that the things are different, all right, without separating. So, for example, you see, and I have shown you some building, if you remember, village in the city. So, you have seen that there are large number of skyscrapers, and in between those skyscrapers there is a slum. This is a site across the world. Wherever you go, you will see such similar sites. You will also see many other dualistic properties. So, on one side it is say park and garden, on the other side it is skyscrapers or concrete jungle, on one side it is water, other side it is dry. So, such dualistic properties you will see everywhere in these urban centers, and you will see that they are not really separated, they are just distinguished. So, they remain side by side, yet they are not separated, they remain there, and with streets functioning as incision suture. Incision suture means streets are making an incision, streets are making a cut, and that cut is sutured, it is stitched. So, the two sides of the incision is sutured through threads, which may be social, which may be psychological, which may be material, and so on. So, this is the picture of urban space time that emerges as we try and understand what it is. Let us move forward. Philosophy of architecture and cities. As we try and understand this, we come across some concepts, and the first concept is isotopy. Now, what is this isotopy? In chemistry, you will remember a term called isotope, two elements which has similar properties are called isotopes. So, something similar, this is derived from perhaps chemistry. So, the term isotopy in urban studies or in architecture means that it is a place and everything that surrounds it that makes it or makes a place the same place. So, essentially if you recollect, the title of today's lecture is Homogeneous Space Time. So, what we are trying to say is that it is the isotopy which is driving homogeneous space time. So, homogeneity of agrarian space time or industrial or urban space time, it is all being driven by something called isotopy. Now, what does it mean in terms of actual unfolding in space? Now, let us go back to the definition. A place and everything that surrounds it that makes a place the same place. The example that I could think of to explain it and make it simpler is the kind of flats that are being constructed today across the world. I have given 3 pictures. These are 3 pictures of 3 different buildings, and these are all high rise residential apartments, and you can see that all the 3, even though they are different apartment, different societies, all of them they look more or less similar. So, you see the context, the way the streets are laid out, the kind of color that is used, the kind of balcony or the lack of balcony. I mean, I was surprised to see that nowadays in the cities, the kind of flats that are being made, they do not have balconies at all, and even if they have balconies, they are very small. Sometimes they do not have windows that open, you just have the sliding doors and so on. So, all of them are becoming more or less similar. All the flats are similar, all the societies, the way the layout is, the way the playground, the swimming pool, everything is more or less the same. And if everything remains the same, if the housing is same, if the layout is same, then the people who live there, they will also have similar thoughts, similar emotions, similar way of interacting with each other, and all that will lead to creation of homogeneous space time. So, that is why we are talking of homogeneous space time, and why homogeneous space time is preventing creation of singular objects of architecture, anything that is unique, whether it is human being or it is an object. The next concept is heterotopy. Now, heterotopy, the definition is a different place, an other place that marks itself by situating itself with respect to the initial place. The difference extends from highly marked contrast to conflict. Now, what does this mean? This means that heterotopy, the definition of it is it is a place, but it is a different place. All right. Now, moment you think of heterotopy, you should think of a place which is different, all right, a place which is not common, a place which is unique, which is different, and it marks itself different by pitting itself against an initial place. Now, it means that if we try and understand in another word, if you say it in other words, heterotopy is a different place compared to that which was earlier. So, different from initial, different from earlier. Now, what is this earlier, what is this initial, and what is this different? Now, this earlier or this initial could be in past, that when we were young we had this kind of a space and now it is different. So, it could be that. It could also be that we have a dream and that dream is of this place, but reality is another place, or the reality is one place and dream is another place. So, heterotopy is always about two places, one which is different and second which acts as the benchmark or the initial place. So, heterotopy, we must keep in mind, is about two places, and if you can keep if first you can create these two places and then these two places are marked. So, they are marked as different. So, for example, nature and non-nature. If you remember when we were looking at the pictures of Central Park in New York or Maidan in Calcutta, they are in marked contrast to the concrete and urban jungle which is located right next to that. So, that is what you can understand by heterotopy. So, initial place is a playground, is a Maidan, is a park, and it is in stark difference, marked difference to the urban jungle or the skyscrapers or the concrete jungle. It can in some cases it is a highly marked contrast. So, you just see the contrast, that here it is green, there it is brown, here it is low, there it is high and so on. But in some cases it can go up to even conflict, that one is trying to eat the other, and wherever there is a conflict, that part which has greater power is likely to win. So the difference is from marked contrast to conflict. That is how we see two places, and two places who are at not so much at war with themselves, but they are marked different, and in some cases there can be a conflict leading to war. Third part is neutral element, and we were discussing this earlier. Neutral element consisting incision suture of juxtaposed places. So, places which are located side by side, but they are joined. First there is a incision, there is a cut between the two, and then they are joined. So, you can think of your own examples, but some examples I can give, like streets, gardens, squares, intersections. So, you will see that sometimes there is a square in between say a park and a residential complex, or there is a fountain which is joining two office spaces, or there is a garden that is lying in between two buildings. So, these are structures which are effecting a cut or an incision between two spaces, two structures, two places, and how that cut is used not just for distinguishing, but also for joining them together. So, if you remember, Heidegger in his essay Building Dwelling Thinking has said that building is essentially joining of spaces. So, it is the joining of these spaces where the architect and architecture will have to focus on, so that they create conditions for dwelling. Then we have elsewhere or non-place. All right. So, we have seen isotopy, we have seen heterotopy, and we have seen neutral element. Now, we see the fourth part, which is elsewhere or non-place. So, this means that it is a place that has no place and it seeks a place of its own. So, it is something like an empty space, something like a no space or no place. It is something like vacuum and so on. So, for example, verticality or height. Now, suppose there is a building or which is say only one floor or two floors, but the area above that which is empty, which is no space or no place. If you think of using that vertical height, the vertical space, and cover it with something which is substantial, which is a building, then it can be defined as elsewhere or non-place. So, that emptiness which offers the potential of creating a place is called non-place, or it is called elsewhere. It is characterized by presence absence. So, presence and absence. So, if you think of empty space above a building or above a site, it is present and yet it is absent. So, that element has to be thought of when we are trying to conceptualize elsewhere or non-place. And presence and absence of what? Presence and absence of divine. So, you can think of say God who is present and yet who is absent. Then you can think of power. So, if you create something hanging on the it can exude power. Sublime thought, half real, half fictional. So, it is real and yet it is fictional because it exists in your mind. So, this kind of thing will be considered so where you cannot see that there is a structure, but you can imagine a structure, and that space where you see but and there is nothing, but you can imagine a structure for that place or that space is called non-place. Something similar can be conceived of even below the ground. So, that is called a reversed verticality or subterranean depth. So, for example, underground, nowadays there are many constructions that are happening underground, especially if you go to Gurgaon near Delhi, you will see a large number of underpasses are being built. Now, these underpasses are they are making traffic flow easier, smoother, faster, but this was earlier not there, and it was conceived as a non-place, and then that non-place was converted into a place. These subterranean depth, the structures that exist inside inside the earth or in the subterranean depth, or verticality below the ground, the reverse verticality. Now, soon like see, we have these metro, many metro trains across the country are having underground railway stations and underground network. Now, inside the earth you have a large number of structures being built and many activities are being carried out. So, a non-place is being converted into a place, and that is also something that will become more and more a reality in urban space time in urban societies. And this the architects and urban planners will have to keep in mind when they are making their plans. Let us move forward. What we now come to is monumentality. Now, what we are discussing is the urban space time and various qualities of it. So, monumentality is also a part. This is not monument, but this is monumentality. In previous lecture, lecture number 18, we have seen we have had a discussion on streets and monuments, but here what we are discussing is monumentality, and the structures, the architectural objects, the facilitating buildings that lead us towards a life in urban space time. Now, in urban space time you will see that there are many things which has monumentality. Now, monumentality can be a building, like you can see in this picture. This picture is of Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus in Bombay, or which is also called VT, Victoria Terminus. So, it is a building, it has height, it has depth, and it is a part of not only a monument, but it has monumentality, because one, it is old, so it is spilling or overflowing into time, that it was there earlier, it is there now, and it is likely to be there in future. Then around it, if you see VT Victoria Terminus, if you see the adjacent areas, it is overflowing into that area. So, because it is a railway station, so all those structures that are required for a railway station, for a large number of people to go in and come out, so all the facilitating structures have been created and they are incorporated by Victoria Terminus. So, fullness of a space that is overflowing its material boundaries. So, this say Victoria Terminus is full and it is covering that space in the fullness, and so much so that it is overflowing its material boundaries, and it has not remained just a railway station, but it has become a place for dwelling for a large number of people who go in and come out on a daily basis. Ancient cities, if you think of, they had plurality of such buildings. Today, many buildings or many cities may not have many such buildings. So, if you think of Bombay, you may not be able to think of many buildings which will have this kind of monumentality. VT is one, but the library is one, Reserve Bank office is one, but there may not be too many such buildings even in Bombay which will have this monumentality, where the space is so full, the fullness of the space is overflowing in its material boundaries. So, it will not be there today in too many cities, but ancient cities had many such buildings, and particularly these buildings were sacred buildings, which means they were temples, they were public buildings like courts, like government offices, then theatricalized buildings like say cinema hall, like say places where dance performances and music performances are held, and so on. So, ancient cities had many such buildings. I mean, what I am able to think of is Tanjore in Tamil Nadu. In Tanjavur, it is also called Tanjavur. I mean, all of us know this city for the famous big temple or Brihadeshwara temple. If you go inside that temple, you will see that right in front of a temple there is a stage, and of course there is also a Nandi who is located on the opposite platform to the temple, but there is also a stage next to the Nandi which is part of the same structure, and often dance performances, music performances, cultural events happen there. And Tanjore is an ancient city. It is the temple itself is more than 1000-year old. So, the city must be at least 1500-year old, and such ancient buildings are overflowing their material boundaries. I mean, if you go to that temple and nearby, so there is a moat, then there is a road around it, and then beyond that there is a market place, and most of them have an extension, their character is an extension of this building itself. So, what I am trying to say is that this monumentality exists in this space time that needs to be seen, understood and appreciated. In urban space, another character is colossal accumulation and sudden ejection. What does it mean? It means that in the morning, because in these urban spaces there are large number of people who come to work, and they come from far away places. They come by various modes of transport. It could be bus, it could be train, it could be their own personal vehicles. So, they come in the morning in large numbers, and they work during the day, and in the evening all of them in a very short period of time they just go back. So perhaps they come in the morning at around 9, 10, 11, and in the evening from 5 to 8 the center of the city becomes vacant. There is a sudden ejection of a massive number of people. So, this colossal accumulation and sudden ejection is a quality, is a characteristic of urban spaces. Then intertwining of threads of activities to become unrecognizable. So, a large number of activities happen in an urban space. That activity can be related to work, related to art and culture, related to trade, related to, it could be anything, and a large number of activities they have their own supply chain or sequence of events, and at many sequence of events there is an intertwining. So, intertwining at the level of transportation, intertwining in terms of people, intertwining in terms of interests, and even intertwining in terms of theories. So, for example, the theory of art will also serve the theory of cinema, and theory of cinema will also serve the theory of say studio, and then all the people who are working in studio and so on. So, this intertwining is so dense and so meshed into each other that they become unrecognizable, and that is also a quality of urban space. And then these urban spaces engender unexpected situations. So, because there is so much of activity, and that too in an intertwined way, you will hear often that people say, oh, it is a small world, and this they say when they come across someone with whom they have someone in common which was least expected. So, that is when we say, oh, world is so small. So, that is what we are trying to mean by saying engender unexpected situation. Because of this intertwining, because of diversity and multiplicity of activities happening, the situations that get created are often unexpected. So, in urban spaces we do expect unexpected situations. Then some more characteristics of urban space time: transcendence of the closed and the open. So, in urban space time you will see closed and open are no longer closed and open, you go beyond closing and opening. It is not just close and open, it is beyond closing and opening. It is beyond immediate and mediate. So, it is not just today or now, but it is also something which is mediating to make it happen. So, immediate and near and far. So, in transcendence of these opposite qualities, closed and open, intermediate, immediate, mediate, and near and far. So, this transcendence is effected sometimes through art, sometimes through technology, sometimes through architecture, sometimes through a combination of all of these. I have given an example, you can see in the picture. This is called Ahmedabad Ni Gufa. Ahmedabad Ni Gufa was created by M.F. Hussain and B.V. Doshi. Both of them together created this structure. You can see it is a gufa, and inside it is painted, there is a beauty to it, there is a structure to it, and you can see it from inside and from outside. So, this inside and outside come together, the closed and the open have come together to create something new and different, and that is transcendence. So, this is how we can understand the transcendence of two opposite ideas, closed and open, immediate and mediate, near and far. Then within a differential reality, no longer separate, but immanent differences. So, reality where there are two different entities, they are not separate, but you can see the difference. So, that is important. This is what we have been talking about, that it is distinguished, but not but not separate. Distinguished through incision suture, not separate. They stay, they exist side by side, they exist together. Next, urban therefore has two blindness, its emptiness and virtuality masked by plenitude. So, it is not real, there is nothing behind it, it is just superficial, you can only see that it is there, it is virtual, it is image, it is at the level of image, and emptiness and virtuality are masked by plenitude. So, so what you see is that, oh, there is this and there is that, there are people, there is height, there is depth, there is activity, there are so many centers and so on. But if you go behind it and you try and see what lies behind this mask, behind this height and depth, behind this so many images, you realize that there is nothing behind it. It is actually completely empty, vacuum, hollow. So, this blindness and this emptiness is also a character of urban space time, but it is masked by plenitude. So, you feel that there is a lot, but actually there is not much. It borrows products, technologies and operations from previous epochs of industrialization. So, in urban space time you see that there are remnants of agriculture space time, there are traces of industry, industrial goods and industrial way of life. So, all that is there, it borrows from various other space time, it does not have much of its own, and that is something that we need to understand when we are trying to study urban space time. So, it has twofold blindness. One is plenitude vacuum or emptiness masked by plenitude, and second is presence of the traces from agriculture and industrial space time. Finally, urban is veiled and it flees thoughts and blinds itself. It becomes fixated on a clarity that is in retreat from the actual. So, urban is hidden. I mean, we are saying that it has twofold blindness. So, it is veiled. What is the nature of urban is veiled, it is hidden, and moment you try to think about it, it will run away, because it is not easy to conceptualize or theorize urban. So, it flees thoughts and it blinds itself. So, it covers itself in darkness or opacity, so that it is not studied, and it flees thought, it runs away when people try to think about it, and it is fixated on a clarity that is in retreat from the actual. So, it tries to achieve clarity, and that clarity unfortunately is retreat from the actual. So, that clarity, it means clearness, and that clearness is not really related to the actual. So, that clearness is actually about that emptiness, about that virtuality, rather than from that which is actual, which is real, which is actually present. So, that is the problem with studying urban space time, and that is why urban is veiled, and what is veiled is this emptiness, this virtuality, and not much of its own, but majority of its contents are from agriculture and industrial space time. So, this is the quality of urban space time, and I have tried to express it with an example of third space. Now, this third space is something very interesting, and we say that it is a quality that has it is a space, or it is a structure that has a concept that has developed in urban space time. So, this emergence of third space here I am giving through the example of a cafe, that a cafe is a good example of third space. And what do we mean when we say third space? What we are saying is that third space is different from first or second space, meaning if you live in your house, and where you are born and you live your life, if that is considered as first space, and the place where you work, if that is considered as the second space, then cafe, or a place where you find yourself, you consider yourself freer to be who you are and live your life in the way you want to live, instead of being governed by the rules of the place, whether it is home or it is office. So, that is a third space. Third space is also a place which is characterized by simultaneity, it is characterized by diversity, and it is characterized by opportunity, the ephemerality, that in the moment you are able to stay. So, simultaneity and ephemerality is what makes a space a third space. So, as urban environments become denser and more complex, traditional public spaces like parks and squares are often supplemented by informal social hubs such as cafes, bookshops, and community centers that serve as third spaces. So, what we are saying is that as urban environment, and when we say urban environment means say office spaces or residential spaces or cities, they become more and more dense with buildings, dense with office spaces, dense with all kinds of structures. Our life also becomes dense, the demands on our time and on our body is multiple, and when such circumstance, when urban environment or urban society becomes like that, at that time traditional public spaces like parks and squares and gardens, of course they exist and they continue to exist, but they are supplemented by, or to them, to their list, another category of spaces get added, and they are places like cafes and bookshops and community centers, where people throng and come to and try and spend some time where they are actually able to free themselves from the restrictions of office and home and so on. So, these places are called third spaces. This form is a focus of attraction and life, but it lacks precise content. So, in this form, in third space, it is a focus of attraction. So, because this is loose, because this is here, you do not find impositions of rules by offices, the bosses, the organizational culture and its prohibitions. Similarly, at home you are playing a role. So, you are in the role of a father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter and so on. So, these roles have to be played and each role has its own boundary. But if you are in a place like a cafe or a bookshop, so these places you do not really have to, you are not burdened by these roles, whether it is office or home. So, that is why in this form of space there is an attraction and there is life and there is freedom, there is looseness, and it also lacks precise content, which is natural because this content is that which brings in the rules and roles and so on. So, this place this space becomes exciting place to be and so on. So, sense of place and the excitement of such third spaces is because they are a combination of cognitive, behavioral and emotional. The sense of place is apprehended, it is understood in a way that is cognitive, behavioral and emotional. So, if we take cafe as a third space, you will see that it has all the three components: cognitive, behavioral and emotional. Here I have given the example of the famous coffee house of Calcutta. You can see this picture and you can see not only the crowd, I mean any time of the day you go you will find this kind of crowd, but coffee house of Calcutta is located in history. It has almost a mythological following, and people who are from Calcutta and those who come to Calcutta make sure that they visit this place at least once. This is a rather simple place and it is an old building, and in fact you will not like the entrance to it. It is rather dirty and it is in a corner, and you will see it is in the middle of College Street, which is fairly crowded and so on. The staircase is dilapidated, it is dirty, it is dark and so on, but it still has that charm because of its history, because of the great people who have frequented this coffee house, and they have often they have spoken about it, that they have had discussion through which they have created masterpieces in various art forms, whether it is poetry, whether it is cinema, whether it is drawing and sports and so on. So, Indian Coffee House in Calcutta is a place which is known for history, which is known for people coming together and enjoying, having a nice time and discovering themselves in company of others and often in company of themselves. So, this is a good example of third space. It is also a good example where all the three, cognitive, behavioral and emotional, all three elements come together to form the place. So, coffee house exhibits itself as a privatized public space, exercising the ability to interact on equal terms with people belonging to different backgrounds. So, people from all walks of life, they come here, they spend time and they get to know each other better, and they, in the process, they also get to know themselves better. And all of this when combined, when studied, it gives birth to a stream of study called socio-spatial dialectics. So, socio is society, born in society, which captures the diversity that is present in society and how that diversity is realized, experienced, expressed through spaces. So, coffee house is one such example. Any spatial structure is an example, whether it is a street, the way the street is. For example, Le Corbusier forgot all about the street. In his city, there are no streets and streets do not have any importance. So, that is how he understood spatial dialectics of a city. Similarly, if you see other, say, Guggenheim Museum, which was created by Frank Lloyd Wright, it is located right in the heart of the city and deliberately so, so that it strikes people and make them realize what is the meaning of organic architecture. So, this idea of socio-spatial dialectics was proposed by the philosopher Soja, Edward Soja, and his whole life has been work in this field. So, this way we come to the end of this course, Philosophy of Architecture. We have had a long journey, and this long journey comprised 20 lectures across a large number of topics. The topics broadly that we have covered in these 20 sessions are, it began with defining architecture, then we took an intercultural view of architecture, and then in the intercultural view we spoke about primarily Indian and Chinese texts which have defined architecture in these cultures, in these countries, and then we came to Western architecture, because most of the world is influenced by Western architecture, and every culture has interpreted Western architecture in the light of its own practices, and then it has gone ahead and built structures which hopefully has created dwelling spaces. So, we came to Western architecture and then we discussed architecture as art. So, is it an art, is it not an art, is it always an art, it is never an art? These are the questions we dealt with when we were discussing this issue, architecture as art. Then we came to technology, architecture and technology, what role technology plays in architecture, how it influences architecture, how it influences way of life, and which has to be interpreted by architecture. And as a part of this section, we also had a discussion on the essay written by Heidegger, which is titled Question Concerning Technology. So, that was an important segment in this part of the course, architecture and technology. Then we went through various aesthetic principles of architecture, and in this we looked at the works of a large number of philosophers who brought their own sense of aesthetics to the discipline of architecture. And here we saw the works primarily, or the most notably, of Immanuel Kant, Hegel, Wittgenstein and Schopenhauer. And then we move to architecture of intimate spaces. When we say intimate spaces, we defined it as places where we have spent our childhood, space of our home, space where we have grown and become older and mature. So, intimate spaces like, say, staircase, or like attic and cellar and bedrooms and corners and chests and drawers and so on. Then we had a section on essence of dwelling, and essence of dwelling through the fourfold, which was again an essay by Heidegger. We had an extensive coverage of this essay, Building Dwelling Thinking by Heidegger, and as a part of that we also covered the topic of thing, locale and site, and we saw that the mathematical approach, where everything is measured in terms of geometry and dimensions, is not sufficient to indicate towards the essence of a dwelling site. essence of a building. We will have to move towards the fourfold if the thing, locale and site have to become meaningful. Then we had then we moved to macro view of architecture, and in macro view we looked at philosophy of cities, and philosophy of cities. As a part of that, we saw urban society. So, not just city, how cities are formed from agriculture to mercantile to industrial to technological to leisure, and ultimately creating something called urban society. We also saw various components within a city like streets and monuments, and how they contribute to a city becoming a city. And then finally, we saw which is today's lecture, the homogeneous space time of urban society, where we theorized the idea of space time, idea of urban space time with the help of isotopy, heterotopy and various other ideas such as neutral element and elsewhere or non-place. We also saw the idea of monumentality, urban space, and then the transcendence of closed and the open, and we came to the conclusion that urban is actually veiled, and to pierce this veil we need new theories, new understanding, and for that we need more time and see how urban space time is unfolding itself. Finally, we spoke about third space, and particularly cafe as a third space, and how in a cafe people are generally freer and less burdened by the rules and norms and morals of office and home, and where they can live themselves, live their life in greater freedom, in greater simultaneity, greater ephemerality, a greater combination of cognitive, behavioral and emotional aspect of their lives. I finally leave you with this building. This building is designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and this is called Robbie House. It is located in Chicago. It has had a long journey. Today it is owned by Frank Lloyd Wright Trust, and it is today a museum. This is one of the most beautiful building I have come across. I hope you enjoy this building, and I also hope you have had a good time going through these 20 sessions of this course, Philosophy of Architecture. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it bringing it to you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.